Welcome to this season's first edition of Market Rumblings here on the fourth period. That's Dennis Bernstein in Los Angeles. I'm Dave Pagnotta in Toronto. And DB, we might as well just start off where we left off last season, and that's talking about Jack Eichel, since he's still a Buffalo Sabre. Now, as we've reported, and as many have reported, there has now been some traction on the trade front, albeit very, very minimal and slow, but they are progressing positively by the sounds of things. And as we hear teams like Columbus, Calgary, San Jose being tossed around, one team I can tell you that is still very much in the mix, according to two sources I spoke to last night, it's the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, I don't know, DB, what type of package they're going to piece together, how they're going to make this work cap-wise and financially, but separate people told me that Vegas is still very much in this thing, and they're trying to make this work. So we'll see if that moseys along. What about you? What are you hearing on the Eichel front? Are there other teams still in this?
Well, Dave, one team that's undergoing a rebuild is the Anaheim Ducks. If they want to accelerate that, they could trade for Jack Eichel, but it's likely going to cost them Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale. And when I watched Jamie Drysdale pot that game winner in Calgary last night, I'm thinking, maybe it's not the best thing to trade for Jack Eichel and accelerate your rebuild. Another team that's been on the cusp of conversations throughout, Dave, has been a team like Minnesota. Right? And from a cap perspective, it would probably take Joel Eriksson, Ek, Kevin Fiala. That's about $10 million in salary. From a prospect standpoint, you're looking at probably Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi. So maybe a combination of those four, certainly the two roster players to match the money for Jack to come in. So they've been sniffing around. So that could be a potential team from an asset standpoint, maybe not from a want standpoint.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, we've been seeing some players signing contract extensions already, and some that have decided to defer those discussions until the end of the season, being Petrus Bergeron, Boston, and Philly's Claude Giroux. Now, going to one team, the defending Stanley Cup champs, back-to-back defending champs, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they've got one important player on their team that is going to be on an expiring contract and going to be a UFA at the end of the year. That's Ondrej Palat, DB. And I can tell you, talking to some people around the league and some sources who are close to the team, they have not engaged in meaningful contract negotiations with Palat on an extension to this point. Neither side's concerned by any stretch, but they just haven't gotten there yet. What does this player mean to the Lightning, and should they be worried at any point?
Well, Dave, if I'm the Palat camp, I'm really taking my time right now. When Nikita Kucherov goes down with an injury, which looks to be serious, it's just going to increase the importance of Palat to this team. And even going back to last season, when they won their back-to-back championship, Dave, like there was all the talk about Goudreau and Coleman and Yanni Gourde, and there was never talk really about Ondrej Palat, who's a top-line player for this team. Like, he is so valuable. He does his job quietly. He produces big time for this team. He's so valuable, and again, with the Kucherov injury, he's going to be even more valuable as they try to go for a three-peat. So, yeah, watch out for that. If both sides say there's nothing to worry about, fine, but, if anything, it's just going to raise the value on Ondrej Palat going forward.
Well, cycling over to your neck of the woods, DB, and discussing the Los Angeles Kings, a longtime King in Dustin Brown. He's also on an expiring contract for the first time in a while. He turns 37 next month. What's the latest going on with Dustin Brown and the Kings? He's producing really well again ever since Todd McClellan took over. But as I said, expiring contract. Is this his last year in the league, or does he have a little bit more in the tank?
A funny story about Dustin. I asked him before opening night at immediate availability, if I had told him 18 years ago that he'd be starting his 18th season in LA, what would he tell me? And he basically told me I'd be full of crap. So it's something that he never expected. But Dave, he is playing for a contract. So what do we know about Dustin? Like, he wants to stay in Los Angeles. It's saying overwhelming, that's what he wants to do. But if he produces, maybe not at the level of last season, remember, he was their leading goal scorer, 70 goals in about 53 games or so. Like, he's not going to do the Corey Perry route. He's not going to come back on a cheap deal, 1 year, $1 million a year, if he produces. You're probably looking at half of what he gets paid now. So probably in the $3 million range. I don't think he's going to go on a multi-year deal. I think he's just going to assess his play year to year and just keep going. But yeah, he wants to come back to Los Angeles. I think the organization wants to keep him around as well. But again, it's not going to be a sweetheart deal to keep him in LA.
Well, that'll do it for our first edition of Market Rumblings this season. That's Dennis. I'm Dave. Stick with us here on the fourth period all season long, as we will continue to bring you weekly updates here on Market Rumblings of everything going around the National Hockey League. Until next time.